10,000 families can make income from olive trees. In 2007, 11 million olive trees were planted. Today, till today, 1 million trees, olive trees, 80% of the 1 million olive trees have been uprooted by the Israelis since 1987. And this is a source of income. And many times when they plant, they will divert the water so they won't be able to water their trees. The fruit trees too, they have almonds and olive trees. That's the main source of income, and Palestinian olive oil is wonderful, and Dennis has a source for it, which he gets, and it's very good. So these caterpillars are what are used to demolish homes, and I'm sure you've all heard of Rachel Corrie. She was a young American who stood in front of it to protect a home. And she was killed. Settlements is another problem. And the settlers are the ones who are really the terrorists of the Israeli group right now. They give a very hard time to the people. They're very fanatic. They want the country to just be made of Jewish people. And they're built on land that doesn't belong to them. And they're stretching throughout the area. Okay, so this is a map showing the Jewish settlements in the West Bank. The green part here, in the left side, is what belongs to the army and is a public park, and no Palestinians are allowed there. The reddish-orange part is where the Arabs can live, the Palestinians, and the light yellow is where the Israeli settlements are. And on the right, and you can see them there, but more clearly on the right, you see the checkpoints. Roads, there are special roads that are built for them in the settlements, so they can go from one point to the other. They're beautifully paved shortcuts. And these are Palestinian roads. Now, from Jerusalem to Bethlehem is a 10-minute trip, right?
Yeah.
But today, it can take an hour.
More.
And an hour and a half. Or if you're allowed, and you go on these windy roads. And there's the settlement. Okay, why to break down the walls? Well, I think you can see because there's so many divisions. There is the ideology, the theology, the politics, and economics. These all divide the groups. And the PCUSA is trying to reconcile the people towards, and they feel that it's very urgent that something be done now. Actually, we don't even know if it is too late. We hope it is not too late, because there's no continuous Palestinian state. It is all broken up, as you saw. So if it's not now, when? And they believe that the window is closing for that to happen. Well, Zion, they believe, we believe, or they believe in the Old and the New Testament, Zion is the land for the Jews. But is it really? What is Zion? Zion is central to justice. It's in the Old and the New Testament, and justice is very important for Christians, Jews, and Muslims in the Quran. It's a place for all nations and people to worship the God of justice and learn war no more. It's a place where people have covenant and responsibility. And it should be justice for all. And human reconciliation involves the theological elements to speak the truth, acknowledging wrong, accepting responsibility, asking pardon, offering forgiveness, and finding a way where all can live in the land of Zion. World War II brought about refugees and brought problems with it too, because many Jews were massacred with Hitler, and we had the Holocaust. And then in 1948, we had the Palestinian refugees because of the catastrophe, the Nakba. We cannot compare these two traumas. One was not responsible for the other. The Arabs were not responsible for the Jewish Holocaust. I would say the Jews are responsible for the Arabs' catastrophe in the Nakba. And these were all based on race, ethnicity, religion, and not being tolerant one to the other. So the plight of the Middle East, it's a beautiful spot, and it is full of problems, and some of the problems are refugees. And we have refugees, and more refugees. This was done by Venice. And the refugees are the European refugees who came to Palestine, the Jewish element. And then there's the refugees that happened in 1948 with the Nakba. And there's the refugees of the Jews who came from the Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries. They came as refugees to Israel. And then there are refugees within the country who left from their areas of Jaffa, Haifa, Tel Aviv areas, and ended up in Gaza or in Jerusalem and in the West Bank places. And violence is on both sides, but it is really not balanced, because the violence on the Israeli side is much more dramatic, much more powerful. They are being armed by US, and they have all the latest arms. And the violence is like the Palestinians have missiles, they have stone throwing, and suicide bombing. Suicide bombing is what everybody raises their eyes upon. But really, when do you do suicide bombing? When there's no more hope, when you're at the end. And building the wall on the Israeli side, and that's their justification for building the wall, it has stopped the suicide bombers. But at what cost? You know. So, and then of course the Jewish violence is much more severe. The settlers give the Palestinians a very hard time. The children can't go to school without police escorting them, and sometimes the police come very late to escort them, and sometimes they escort them partway and then let them be. And then they're harassed by the settlers, either by dogs or by actual settlers. So the violence is unbalanced, and they've alluded to that later. And then there's the nuclear threat, and Israel and Iran. Of course, Iran is saying that they have signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, but they say they're going to use it for peaceful things, but who knows? Israel is being fuzzy. Netanyahu did not come when they were having the nuclear treaties to be signed in the US. He did not show up. So, and then where have all the Christians gone? The Christians are now to 1% Christians in the Middle East, because they're discriminated against by the Jewish people because they're not Jews, and by the Muslims because they're not Muslim, and they find it easier to go out to the Western countries because they feel like they can associate more because of the Christian element there. So they leave the country much easier than the Muslim people would. But I tell you, before 1948, we lived very harmoniously in Palestine with the Muslim people and with the Jewish people. It was after the partition that this happened. This is showing refugees being uprooted. and they are in camps. To this day, 62 years later, they're still in camps. As a young child of 17, 18, I was working with UNRWA among refugees in Jericho and surrounding towns of Jerusalem. And to be a refugee qualified for aid, and the aid you got was flour, sugar, and rice. 3 things we say are not good for you, all the right things.